What would you consider to be the benchmarks of breaking news coverage? Wall-to-wall coverage with anchors repeating the same sparse details over and over again, speculating on what they could mean, what could be happening, who may be involved. Seems we got schooled last week when a gunman opened fire at the Canadian Parliament in Ottawa. Take a listen as the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation's Peter Mansbridge guides viewers with credibility and a sense of calm that most of us aren't accustomed to.
So a situation that is, as we say, tense and unclear. And it's on days like this, we keep reminding you of this, and it's important. It's on days like this where, the story takes a number of different pathways, a number of changes occur, and often rumors start in a situation like this. We're trying to keep them out of our coverage, but when they come sometimes from official sources, like members of Parliament, you tend to give them some credence, but you carefully weigh it with what we're also witnessing. It's clear the situation is not over. It is clear that police are in a tense standby situation and continue to be on the lookout. And until somebody blows the all clear on this, we will continue to stay on top of it and watch as the events unfold.
The situation in Ottawa last week wasn't that much unlike what we've seen here during the Boston Marathon bombings, during any number of school shootings, during plane crash coverage. But what we saw in that 53-second clip, it felt very different than anything we would ever see in wall-to-wall coverage on networks here.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say anything we'd ever see. I mean, it reminded me a lot of some of the coverage that you saw at 9/11. Okay. Where the network anchors were very calm about the way in which they approached it. Since that time, we've
that was 13 years ago. That was
13 years ago. In that 13-year span, we've gone from that to what happened in the Boston Marathon bombing, where you had speculation being thrown around, people on the air saying things that they hadn't confirmed. And I think we need to go back to this kind of coverage, because I think this is one of the things that sort of calms the public, takes away the fear, and brings fact and knowledge to the story as opposed to rumors and innuendo.
Can we put that genie back in the bottle, though, 13 years after the fact? Is style and is what has become, I don't want to use the word acceptable, but what we've become used to has changed so much?
I mean, it probably isn't going too far to say that maybe Canadians are just kinder, gentler, more restrained people than we are in the U.S. And their TV, the environment is a lot different there than it is here. I mean, we all know what our cable TV landscape looks like and all the jockeying and the different political positions that are taken. But there were some pretty outrageous headlines that ran on the websites of all of our media organizations compared to the restraint that Canadians were showing. I'll say one other lesson I took from it, though, Amy, that maybe is not so obvious. The CBC is a publicly financed news organization. Sure. They have their financial problems just like public media do in this country, but it's a much more robust level of support than we have here. I mean, we don't have PBS, for example, out there doing their own 24-hour spot news coverage the way the CBC does. Maybe if they did, we'd get that kind of a viewpoint to compare to the CNNs and the Foxes and the MSNBCs.
I mean, I think Mike makes a good point. I think our media sort of plays to the audience, and it's kind of hard to turn that off when you get into a situation like this, when you're doing the sort of shout fest back and forth on a 24/7 environment, and then something like a school shooting happens. It's kind of hard to say, okay, we got to go to this thing here.
We need to be controlled. We need to
exactly.